could be the breakout moment in Indo-US relations. The relationship has passed the test of friendship. मतलब friends तो हैं, now we have to deliver beyond. In any dialogue, असहमति का साहस और सहमति का विवेक. So the courage to disagree and the wisdom to agree and converge. It will exceed the outcomes of the Indo-US civil nuclear. HAL shares have gone up by 25% over the last one month. जब से ये deal announce हुई है engine वाली. So it is win-win for everybody. If they have concerns with our human rights, I can have concerns with their human rights. Gun control, abortion, white supremacy. Make in India is about liberating the forces of innovation, energy and enterprise from the scourge of process and procedure. नियमों के जाल से छुटकारा to geopolitical competition. Make in India is about innovation. Innovation, bridge, Indo-US, talent. She says that the contest between superpowers is a contest for talent. It is geopolitical competition, cutthroat. You just can't say कि भाई we will not take this, we will wait and take that. Where is the time? It is serious cutthroat competition. You have to be extremely agile, fleet-footed. What is Sam Dam Dand Bhe? In the strategic foreign policy sense, it is national interest by means fair or foul. On how Russia has used these private military companies like Wagner in their, what they call their grey zone of their statecraft. So what are the fissures? So the fissures are, firstly we know that, in this Putin solar system, the main characters in this episode were, of course, Prigozhin, CEO of Wagner or whatever you call it. Prigozhin was convicted of theft, burglary and all kinds of criminal assaults. So he was a convict. He comes out of jail, opens a set of hot burger stalls in St. Petersburg. People say, will the US fight for you? Why should they? They won't fight for us. We don't need their blood or treasure. We need technology. We will fight on our own, but we need technology. Prigozhin was shouting from the top of his voice. He was abusing Shoigu in public. So the fact that he was unhappy, there was, something unsettling happening in the oligarchs and all that. The Russians have lost some 1,000 men. The Ukrainians have lost 13,000 men, 10 times. Now this is what happens, Western hesitancy. Should we give them this? Should we give them that?
Jai and friends, you are watching Defensive Offense English and I am Vaibhav. Today we are joined by Lieutenant General Raj Shukla. Those who are the viewership of Defensive Offense English are very well aware of General Saab. He has been courteous enough to join us for a couple of times in the past also. So welcome, sir.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Good to be back and congratulations for restarting your English channel.
Yes, sir. And to the viewers, I would like to share this that first of all, I apologize that I was not able to continue with this channel. But from now onwards, you will be seeing regular content on Defensive Offense English. And once again, sir, thank you so much for joining. And I'm really glad that we could restart with you.
Yes.
And I could not find a better guest.
Thank you
for this. So, sir, recently, since we last met, Prime Minister visited Egypt. He visited United States. So, what did this visit achieve? And we always see one more thing, sir. We always see whenever Prime Minister visits westwards, there is always criticism of some sort. Either it will be domestic or it will be from guys like Obama and similar people who are centered to left or left-leaning kind ideology that they subscribe to. So what did we achieve? And why does it happen that every time Prime Minister visits West, there is a criticism?
So they go, now that the euphoria about the visit has settled for the last, 4, 5, 6 days, I've been seriously reflecting on it. And I'll give you my views on the visit and then we can discuss whatever the critiques are. So see, when I look at what happened and the outcomes, I really think it's a landmark visit. So in my view, say if the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's visit was a turning point, this could be the breakout moment in Indo-US relations. So I'm making this point, turning point and breakout. And why? For a couple of reasons. Firstly, you see the deals that have been signed, and there have been a whole lot of deals, pretty significant in my view. They give one message. They give a message that, see, democracies not only debate, they also deliver. See, what is the Chinese narrative? The Chinese narrative, which is increasingly getting traction, is that these democracies, they debate, they moralize, they preach, they don't deliver. We deliver. We are delivering in Africa, we are delivering. If the Indo-US relationship now seriously starts delivering, then it will be a true alliance of democracies and what Atalji called national allies. So we must gauge this visit from the delivery standpoint. Then you see what has this visit laid out. If you see the joint statement, it was headlined or subtext from the seas to the stars. As I was thinking that who did it? It was possibly, a pun on that other tale of from the oceans to the mountains and honey and steel. It was a pun on that. Or it is also telling you that of all the prospective collaboration from undersea to outer space, and I'm not talking only military, to strategic military and civil, and we can discuss that. So if it is actually of that kind, that it will open up a new chapter in prospective collaboration from the seas to the stars. So first deliverance and then look at the scope, seas to the stars. I think it will be a really landmark. And now let's see, why do I say, look at DTTI. There have been initiatives in the past. They were killed by bureaucracies. In these two deals that have been signed, all rules have been shattered by the leadership on both sides. So perhaps the NSA, the Prime Minister, the External Affairs Minister and their counterparts on those sides. Not easy to get these deals going. फिर एक और चीज़ जो मेरे को इसमें से लगी, and that was from the Prime Minister's address, I think, to the Congress, which I think where he said that the relationship has passed the test of friendship. मतलब friends तो हैं, now we have to deliver beyond, which means what? Which means that we can deliver on what is our mutual interest without rocking the boat of strategic autonomy or falling into the lure of alliance. So it has become very pragmatic. It is now predicated on common sense, and it has steered clear of these ideological debates. So there have been phases in the relationship. For a long time, it was stuck in this, ideological debates, by alliance. Now we are saying that these are these two mature democracies, one the oldest, one the biggest. They both are players, on the international chessboard in their own right, and they have the confidence to deliver together. So this is, my, what shall I say, the broad take on this visit. We can come to the substance of it a little later. Also, see, I want to just, we are democracies, we will have differences, but can we not tide over those differences and find what our convergences are? There is a wonderful Hindi phrase which I heard from one Dr. Agarwal. He says, in any dialogue, asehmati ka sahas or sehmati ka vivek. So the courage to disagree and the wisdom to agree and converge. I think the Indo-US relationship should reflect that. We will have our differences, but differences doesn't mean that the relationship collapses. And we'll also have the wisdom to see where we can converge. So it is on these metrics, I think, that the visit was very significant. Now, when you come to the details, I will tell you, in my view, why it was.
So whenever we talk about Indo-US relations, in India, the majority always tends to focus more on defense. And so in the last visit, it was decided that there will be there was an agreement between General Electric and HAL. So the engines, fighter jet engines, will be manufactured in India, and 80% of the parts will be manufactured in India. So there are critics also, and there are who celebrating. So those who are the critics, they are saying the rest of that 20% that is not going to be manufactured in India is the critical technology, which US will never give you. And the optimists, they are saying at least we are manufacturing 80% non-critical technology here. So on which side you are on this, and how significant do you think this agreement between HAL and GE is?
So I would like to think that I am on the side of objectivity, but now let's discuss what that is. And see, this happens when you go into the nitty-gritty of these deals. So I think you see these two deals which you mentioned. One is the engine deal, one is the Predator and Q9B. And along with that, there are other two which have not been talked about so much. One is ISET. initiative on critical emerging technologies. So that will be game-changing if it actually flowers in the manner that it should. In my view, if it actually, pans out as we think it should, it will exceed the outcomes of the Indo-US civil nuclear deal. And I will just tell you why. And the other is what is called the Indus-X, Indo-US Defense Innovation Bridge, which is taking this relationship to an altogether new level. And this is what we must discuss to address, our critics. Or in charon deal ke ird-gird, or around these deals, the ripple and the downstream effects, which are already happening, and I'll give you with some examples. So in totality, the 4 deals, the ripple and downstream effects, they will tell us whether or not the Indo-US relationship has been taken to the next level. Now let's go to the engine deal. I've done some research. What my facts tell me are 80% of technology transfer by value, which is significant. And what kind of technology are we talking of? Just the elite engine technology that we are talking of, who has it today? USA, UK, France and Russia, not even China. Now, are you telling me that with that friendship without limits, all this technology is not being passed to China? Who else will give it to us? And these negotiations started in 2012. This has been a long and arduous journey. Ab humko 80% mil rahi hai. Look at how significant this technology. And people say price. I say it's priceless. Ukraine today, the West has a very significant interest. USA, it's make or break. But they are not giving the latest technology. They're thinking twice about F-16s and the other missiles because they are fearful it will land in Russian hands. So technology is salient. Nobody gives you. This is a huge deal. Now 20%, be what other nations do. 20% will be reverse engineered and you'll have to do all that. Sab karte hain. America ne bhi wahi kiya tha. China has done it. Now look at the other argument. We are 2 democracies. We should have been sharing technologies, but we ITAR, export control, both democracies. And what did China do to the US? They stole technology from them. They bought it or they maneuvered it. So look at from the longer perspective, a country which was absolutely on the opposite side of your value system, usne to aapse technology le li. And to what you called a natural ally, you were denying technology. Does it make sense? Iska consequence kya hua hai? Today in 37 out of 44 leading technologies, subset, there's a ORF study. In 44 subsets, who leads? In 37, China leads. 37. Balance mates the US. So technology is huge, this engine technology that we are getting. Then it is not just a technology. What will it do? Today, this class of aircraft, they are powering your, Gripen and Super Hornet. 250 of the LCA Mark II will have this state-of-the-art engine. See what it will do to the prowess of the Air Force in dogfights and, all those air-to-air fights. But sir, last point is, it will also fire the aerospace ecosystem in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Koraput. Is deal ke saath 600 MSMEs and some 3 to 4 startups are getting that kind of technology. This will, seriously give a fillip to what is called India becoming an aerospace power. You don't get aerospace power merely by buying 150 or 50 Rafales from. It is these things which make you an aerospace power. So I think it is pretty significant. Then we can also discuss what the MQ-9B is and the other 2 things. So in sabka, when you aggregate all this,
MQ-9, let me say this because the viewers are very much interested on these Predator drones. So we are leasing it or we are buying it, or because there is a end user agreement also that US does, that you can use our weapons against a particular country, or you can't use our weapons against this particular country. These are the nitty-gritties and these are the lacunas that they try to put in different agreements. So are we also, falling prey to such lacunas?
ये तो prey वाली बात है ना. India now today is 141 crores, second largest military, fifth largest economy, third largest economy in a few years. एक समय था, I remember, today I was trying to find out when, but I couldn't. I read an article somewhere in Times of India or something, 80s, 90s ki baat hai. It was entitled The wallflower and the dance of the dinosaurs. Matlab, India is a wallflower. The dinosaurs are not even asking you for a dance. Poochte nahi the. Today you are being wooed. You are the geopolitical toast. Can India be pushed around in the negotiations like this? We today will get what is in our best interest. Will everybody give you everything? No. You have to make the best of what is available. How did China become a technological giant? It poured its way gradually in the 1950s. Chow En-lai and Mao went to Roosevelt and Marshall and said, this is what Michael Pillsbury tells us, they said, sir, we will become like you. This Communist Party is just a temporary arrangement. Give us technology, give us money. This is how they've got pleaded. They were on their knees. And nobody is going to give you all technology in a platter. Now the second deal, the nitty-gritty is yet to come out, but it has, political endorsement on both sides. So it is perhaps going to be the best in the circumstances. But see what will it give you? What has it already given you? In Galwan we got 2. So those 2 today are, I'm told, together, they are monitoring 14 million square kilometers of oceanic expanse. 14 million. What does it do to your power projection capacities? Look at that. It is significant. What it will give you now, the MQ-9B Predator. See, iska jo engine hai, I'm told it's 15 times more powerful than an earlier version. It is giving you payloads, both surveillance and strike. It is giving you persistent surveillance. Now, that is game-changing. Persistent surveillance means once you capture a target, it is in your custody for very long, 40-hour orbits and 40,000 feet. Persistent surveillance ke saath, precision capacities. With this, you can take out people like General Suleiman was taken out, like Al-Zawahiri was taken out. Now, I'm not saying that India suddenly will become, start jackbooting around the world. It will become powerful and be responsibly powerful. But will it not send a message to people across? It is in a better class than what the Chinese drones have. So this is what it does to you. And of course, uske ird-gird, now that you're saying, ab bhai dheere dheere cheezein hoti hain. I'm told in the MQ-9B deal, there is an Indian startup, 114 AI or Third iTech. It is making the designation systems in that deal. So the deal is American, but a whole lot of Indian, when this startup makes, see now this is the difference. It is not technology transfer now. It is technology infusion. It is far beyond that. Similarly, around in this ecosystem, there's another startup, I'm told, Spacecom, US Spacecom, has done what they call CREDA, which is a cooperative research agreement. They are making an AI tool for that. So this is essentially what this American system is. Now ISET, technologies of the future, AI, quantum, collaboration hoga, startups ke beech mein, corporate majors ke beech mein. HAL shares have gone up by 25% over the last one month. Jab se ye deal announced hui hai engine wali. So it is win-win for everybody. Achha, what are our options? Today, what are our options? Russia, and see this is, let's talk absolutely plainly. Russia, of course, we are very grateful in the past. They have been good friends. They have given us platforms. But what the Russian military lacks is an innovation system. They don't have Silicon Valley. It is really not transfer of technology. Transfer of technology is one part. Around that, this whole technology ecosystem which will develop. It is a new culture of innovation, energy and enterprise which we need to become this aerospace, maritime power. चारों को आप मिला लो, I said innovation bridge means जो वहाँ naturally innovation होता है, our innovators, they will collaborate, they will discover technologies of the future. इससे क्या होगा? Now, this will help India to transit from a military which is, focused on a $3 trillion economy to a military which should focus on a $35 trillion economy. Its character and profile has to change. All this will enable all this to happen. Now, will there be challenges? Of course there will be. There will be huge challenges. Both sides have to show wisdom. For example, India has to change. We have to realize that the American system hai, IPRs are owned by private companies. It will not happen government to government every time. We will have to create business cases around them. So our corporate majors, their corporate majors, our startups, their startups, our PSUs will have to find business cases. But it has set the tone and tenor of taking strategic military technologies to an entirely new level. Now, there are no guarantees, but prospectively, a lot can be done. And what it will do, you see, so far we had this PSU to PSU relationship. Now, that was a relationship of one kind. But once you get this technological infusion, it will fire your military-industrial complex. And aap dekho, military-industrial complex today is so important. Russia today has an advantage in the sense of, platforms, but it lacks hugely in critical emerging technologies. So there is a huge opportunity in this, defense deal, in my view, for the reasons that I have said. Of course, there will be critiques, but when the nitty-gritty pans out, I'm sure it will be negotiated. This is what they will give, this is what they can't. It will be hard negotiation. But even getting to this, please, you ask anybody in the know, it's been a huge challenge.
But sir, coming back to the one question that was left unanswered, that every time Prime Minister visits there are always statements, there are always complaints. There are certain people who reach out to US Senate or US Congress to, ask questions, tough questions to Prime Minister Modi. There are people like Obama who start criticizing, start getting worried about human rights problems in India. And there are NGOs who start protesting, and there are vested groups, So I want to know that how does it happen that every time the Prime Minister visits there, such statements, I mean, if you are so concerned about, if Obama is so concerned about human rights here, he should be making these noises 365 days a year. He should not be waiting for Prime Minister to come to Washington so that he can give a statement in the media, or these NGOs who start getting worried about human rights. So how do you look at it? Why does it happen? And what are the reasons, according to you, which are responsible for this?
So, I'll make two comments. One is, if they have concerns with our human rights, I can have concerns with their human rights. Gun control, abortion, white supremacy. What is your track record on that? But see, the two relationships today, when we talk of the need of strategic convergence, they have far, more important objectives to realize than to get caught up in this. And let me make one more. If we can bury our differences, we are converging our democratic prowess against a value system which is entirely different. It is entirely different. And so I'm saying, I make this argument, if these two democracies can get together, aggregate their power, it is very important, because if you have power, your values prevail. If you don't have power, you will submit. So we can have quarrels between us. We can discuss those quarrels. But what about the value system that we are up against? That is of a very different kind. Authoritarian, non-democratic. So, I mean, these will be quibbles. If there are any genuine grievances, they can be addressed. And, we are capable of responding to them. But saner voices on both sides have not raised it.
So, in America, lobbying is legal. So, do lobbies play their role in this?
There are lobbies. There may be genuine concerns. But, I remember there was a program where I think Ashley Tellis was asked this question. And Ashley said, no, it has not been timed as such. Perhaps it could have been. He says that, President was asked this question and he answered it in the manner he sought. So just as President Obama has an opinion, we also have an opinion. But I'm just saying that in the light of these changed strategic circumstance, which is China actually, and the larger challenges we have, these should be buried.
So we recently saw a video where Putin was he was addressing the business community in the Russian business community, and he was appreciating the Make in India initiative by the Prime Minister Modi. So how come the Russian president has become such a big fan of Make in India? And because there are a lot of critics of Make in India also. They say that Make in India is nowhere to be found, and we can't find that. What has India achieved out of Make in India? Where are the industries? Where are the large, military industrial complex that India was promised under Make in India? We can't say it, but Putin seems to be very fond of it.
So you see how important a military industrial complex is. Today, America, the mighty America, is not in a position to meet the ammunition needs of Ukraine. I'm told if Ukraine is firing, 110,000 artillery rounds in 10 days, The entire American military-industrial complex can manufacture only 100,000 rounds in a month. The mighty Americans are falling short of artillery ammunition. So this is how important military-industrial complexes are in your hour of need. So when people...
Otherwise, they're called white elephants.
Exactly. And so now I'll tell you why Make in India is so significant for 2-3 reasons. See, is it only about technological self-reliance? Technological self-reliance has been our slogan right from 1947. We've always said we'll be self-reliant. But the routes that we adopted for their self-reliance, the PSUs, they served a purpose, but they are not competitive enough when it comes to modern innovation systems. See, I'll just give you an example. Today, the Americans are conceding that the Chinese are ahead in innovation. And I'll tell you what happens when you get innovation. Before that, I'm paraphrasing the Prime Minister. He says that Make in India is about liberating the forces of innovation, energy and enterprise from the scourge of process and procedure. Niyamon ke jaal se chutkara. So we are now talking of what? Make in India is about innovation. And I'll give you examples of how innovation helps. It is about talent infusion and it is about civil-military fusion. I'll just elaborate on these 3 things. See how innovation systems deliver in a superior manner. The Chinese, because their innovation system is superior, because of all that they have done, today, at the end of this innovation, what is coming out from the operational pipeline? So because of a superior innovation system, they say that from an idea to inventorization of that product in combat. So the idea of a tank and the tank performing on ground. Say, example, if the Chinese take 7 years, the Americans are taking 17. The mighty Americans. They say that if today half of the Chinese Navy is collapsed and half of the American Navy is collapsed, to rebuild it, the Chinese will take only 3 years. How much will the Americans take? 20. Innovation is central to geopolitical competition. Make in India is about innovation. Innovation, bridge, Indo-US, talent.
So how does it helps in innovation when we are actually buying stuff from there?
Exactly. So we are buying only what is needed for our critical operational gaps. The rest is this innovation we are encouraging. Startups, IDEX is what? Innovation. TDF. Now they are small baby steps because we have neglected this for so long. But this is the absolute basic you can do to build.
So when we have the ministers like Saint Anthony, who should have been a saint but chose to be a politician and did not invest a single penny in innovation or buying military hardware.
This is the exact thing. You see, it is not only him, it was that whole mindset in those days. And see, why blame them? The Americans have been lazy. The Chinese have beaten them in innovation. And it is not only this. See, once this innovation starts, see what happens. I'll give an example of innovation. So Elon Musk, what did when he entered the space world, his competitors were Boeing, Lockheed, NASA. What did he see? He said, they wait for the perfect test. The perfect test, because when they test, they cannot fail. When they test, the president must come, everybody must clap. So they wait for the perfect test. He just changed the whole thing. He said, I will fail 4-5 times. He said, I will fund failures. जो अभी वो spaceship या जो project कर रहा है, he has announced that I will do so many tests by December and I will fail. But each time I fail, I'll use the data that I get to make sure why. So the gestation period of the success reduces. By this innovation in launch costs, he has pushed out Boeing, he's pushed out Lockheed, NASA is confined to exploration. Today the partner of Spacecom, US Spacecom, is Elon Musk. Innovation has driven down launch costs. Now they are working on innovation driving down satellite costs. Now when these costs go down, you see what happens to your products, your time frames going down. So wahan pe the motto is early prototyping, fail fast. They fund failures. Now we have to change our whole ecosystem which is designed to, procure L1, perfect launches. This whole thing has to change. This is what innovation will do. Now see what the Chinese have done. We must pick the best from every system. They do civil military fusion. हमारे बीच में क्या है ये civil, ये military, dual use. कहते हैं क्यों? Civil fuse करो. They say if PLA is part of Huawei. When Huawei is working on 5G or facial recognition, or they have PLA teams embedded. They see what is good for civil, they see what is good for military. That's why
Huawei was banned here?
Yeah. But the most of these technologies lie at the cusp of civil-military fusion of the future. So we should not develop now. That is why we are dissolving these silos. Civil, military, private, government. Ab wo jo HL mein, the factory that we have set up, it is what? Tata and Airbus. It will challenge private monopoly. It will challenge monopolies like HL. So everybody needs competition. So the whole logic of civil-military fusion is talents or attributes from any pace, any kind. So this whole Make in India is about all this. It is not just this. Innovation, civil-military fusion, getting talent pipelines. I'll just give you this one quote. She says that the contest between superpowers is a contest for talent. Without talent, it is like, a tree with no roots and a fountain with no water. They are getting Nobel laureates and all to power their strategic military systems. Now, that is the talent you need here. So for deep technologies of the future, AI, quantum, you will have to fund those kind of startups. Your funding pattern, your mentoring. With the technologies of the future, we have a serious deficit of skilling and mentoring and all that. So our Make in India is about all this, and all these deals that we are doing, these agreements that we are signing, they will smarten our PSUs by creating competition for them. They will get corporate majors to partner with startups, our startups to partner with them. This is this new, and let me just make one last point, about what we get from Russia and what we get from USA. See, what we get from Russia and what we get from USA is entirely differentiated. From them, we get one kind of product, but what we will get from the Americans is an entirely different innovation system. So in our Make in India, especially Make in India defense, this is the philosophy of Make in India. Now, what can be the quarrel with that? I don't understand. It's about smartening up. It's about delivery. It's about reducing timelines of delivery, what is coming out of the operational time. One thing we must realize that, listen, whatever you call China, competitor, adversary, it's a serious customer. It is geopolitical competition, cutthroat. You just can't say, ki, bhai, we will not take this, we will wait and take that. Where is the time? It is serious cutthroat competition. You have to be extremely agile, fleet-footed. So that is the philosophy behind, Make in India and all that. In my view, it is for all the reasons that I have said. In fact, the critique of Make in India is should deliver far more. We should get pace and scale into it. There should be more orders. Startups will fail. This whole culture of R&D, innovation has to come, that we will research, we will develop our own products. And since that has started for the last 5-6 years, there are startups in India delivering on real deep technologies. It is entirely possible. So I think it is a very healthy start. It will actually change the whole strategic military game. And let me say one last point on this. See, of late you see how ambitious we have become in other domains. Look at our digital public infrastructure. The Americans are clapping. They are now, I think, India and America are partnering to take the DPI to about 50 countries. It's doing so well. When we get ambitious, we are ambitious on millet. We want to be number one. We are ambitious on green hydrogen. In national security, why are we not ambitious? Oh, critique इससे शुरू होता है यार क्या you are talking big stuff. Of course, you have to think big. You have to think big and of course also have your feet planted on the ground. But this is what India is going to become now, whatever you call us, because in Bharat, the terminology is not, but if we are going to become a power of consequence, we will have to think in this manner, act in this manner.
So on one hand, we are engaging with Russia and we are getting praises from President Putin, who calls Prime Minister his friend. We have Joe Biden, he calls Prime Minister Modi his friend. And so India as a country is also, walking on a very tight rope when it comes to Russia and America. How are we, according to you, how do we actually execute it? because we rarely see a country which manages diplomacy between countries like America and Russia so well that we have been able to do. And the second part of the question, that we have always been part of non-aligned movement. It was conceptualized by Prime Minister Nehru at that time, and the current government, which is the party, it was actually opposed to the idea of non-alignment movement. So, and today they are practicing the same, that they are saying that on Ukraine we are non-aligned, and over different issues they say that, okay, we are non-aligned, we are not with Russia and we are not with America, we are neutral. So, how do you answer like these two parallels which are there?
So see, let's take a very commonsensical, non-ideological approach to this. So in my view, when we spoke of non-alignment in the Nehruvian days, there was a logic to it. There were these two powerful blocks. We wanted to stay clear of those blocks, and we said we will not be part of any bloc. We will be aligned what we think is our self-interest, national. The argument is very fine. But in the real world, it doesn't work like that. In 1962, it so ended that Prime Minister Nehru wrote a letter to President Kennedy and said that give us aircraft, give us ammunition, give us guns, give us pilots. So non-alignment didn't work. Let's be realistic. In 1971, when this time the Americans were flexing their muscles in the Bay of Bengal, it was the Indo-US Friendship Treaty which came to our rescue. So non-alignment means that we will steer clear of the blocks and do that which is in our self-interest or which is in the national interest. But my argument is that we have not been seriously non-aligned in that sense. A non-alignment, another interpretation could be that we will leverage both the blocks or milk both the blocks in our self-interest. That is common sense. So if that is non-alignment, I endorse it equally. But see, today what has changed? There was this whole concept of, geopolitical swing states. Now, this is an interesting concept which says that today many countries like India, which have become reasonably powerful, they have advantages, say, in supply chains, in nearshoring, offshoring, in a visionary leader, in a powerful military, in a strong economy. These states have an agency of their own. They have influence of their own to, to take a stand in various crises in accordance with their interests. I think that's what we are doing. What I think the External Affairs Minister calls multi-alignment. So if oil is cheap from Russia, so be it. If we can get ISET from US, so be it. So we are not aligned, but we are aligned to an issue, to a particular, shall we say, a crisis. We judge it on a case-by-case basis and do what is in our interest. Also, let us see one more thing. In a globalized world, it is not possible to nurse all your needs, business, commerce, technology, military, this, that, from one block. You have to go from one block to the other. For example, say I'm telling you semiconductors. I'm told from sand to finished product, a semiconductor passes 70 countries. अभी आप उसमें check करोगे कि ये किस block में है, किस block में है. So non-alignment was a concept good for its times. I told you what the reality was. Perhaps it was wise and we saw the reality. Today we are practicing deft multi-alignment, which we are in a position to do so today. Now in that sense, even take our relationship with USA and Russia. We value Russia as a friend, and therefore on Ukraine, for good reason. I mean, what we were telling the West was that while Russia may have attacked Ukraine, also look at the events which led up to it. When you took NATO right to its borders, perhaps there was provocation. So we took that stand on Russia. We bought oil when it was in our interest, and we are doing the deals with the Americans. So today, India, as I said, that geopolitical swing state, it is being wooed. It's no longer that wallflower. People are asking us for a dance, and we are dancing well. We dance with the Americans, we dance with but always in our self-interest. So, what is Sam Dam Dand Bhed? In the strategic foreign policy sense, it is national interest by means fair or foul. Foul, it says. So overall, I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm not saying that we should, it should be valueless. It should be without any morals. But we have to realize there is a world of utopia and there's a world of reality. So in the world of reality, multi-alignment is a deft policy, and that is what we are doing. And I think we are doing it pretty well.
So coming to the next point, sir, we recently saw that there was a attempt of coup, if we can call it a coup. I don't know if militias can carry on coup d'etat, but Wagner group tried to take over Kremlin. Do you think it has weakened Putin in Russia? And the all-powerful, mighty Putin, who was the savior of the great and who was born to recreate the so great fallen Soviet Union. Do you think it has weakened Putin, or it has dented his image as the all-powerful man in Russia? And so what is the role of all these Russian oligarchs? Because we often hear a lot about the Russian oligarchs being very powerful, much more powerful than the state. So what's your take?
So I find the second part of your question more interesting because, I think this episode of 24th June, Prigozhin's episode, has shown the torchlight on two things. One is on certain fissures in the, Russian power structure. And second is this, what is most significant is what you are saying on how Russia has used these private military companies like Wagner in their, what they call their grey zone of their statecraft, in the grey zone of geopolitics. Now, the second is more interesting for analysis. The first, it does point to some fissures, but what was played out in the initial hours is kind of a mutiny that seemed to be an exaggeration, more in the nature of a farcical mutiny or some, but it does point to some fissures. So let's address both of them. So what are the fissures? So the fissures are, firstly, we know that, in this Putin solar system, the main characters in this episode were, of course, Prigozhin, CEO of Wagner or whatever you call him. Then there was Shoigu, defense minister. Then there was Gerasimov, the chief of general staff. And then there is Surovikin, who's a younger general, far more dynamic, bold, hero of Chechnya, hero of Syria. And he and Prigozhin operated together in Syria. So now, there were some rumors about Surovikin being arrested. There could be some increased familiarity between Surovikin and Prigozhin because they are of similar temperament. And they are kind of rebelling against the older, more cautious bureaucratic generals like Shoigu and Gerasimov. So that seems to be the story. Now we know what triggered it. Basically what triggered it was a decision taken that all private contractors now, you will get into a deal or an MOU with the Russian Defense Ministry. So people like Wagner who were functioning in this space, they felt threatened. They had a very independent profile, but perhaps because of Prigozhin's recent, outbursts against Shigozh, in Bakhmut, he felt that he was not being supported, ammunition was not being given, equipment was not being given. He also thought that these bureaucratic generals, they're far too bureaucratic, not nimble enough for Ukraine kinds of fights. So there was a difference there. And he was far too voluble in, calling out Shoigu and Gerasimov. And so these were these fissures in the power structure. And I think Putin also decided it was time to step in and discipline. But see, what was surprising was that he had the guts to move to Rostov. Now, Rostov is the southern military headquarters of Ukraine. And he slides into that headquarters, there's no response. And he marches to Moscow. So somebody said that the only person who had the courage to march to Moscow before him was either Hitler or Napoleon. That may be an exaggeration. But getting to 120 kilometers, knocking off 6 helicopters, 1 fixed wing, some kind of courage. And then being given, almost a free pass to Belarus. They say it is Lukashenko, but some kind of... So now see, the origins are very interesting. And that's what I got into. So this Wagner is a private military company. It is set up by the GRU, the Russian military intelligence, in 2014. Now look at the logic. What is Prigozhin? Prigozhin was convicted of theft, burglary and all kinds of criminal assaults. So he was a convict. He comes out of jail, opens a set of hot burger stalls in St. Petersburg. There he somehow gets proximate to Putin, or I think the 2011 when there was a rebellion, protest against the parliamentary elections. He engineered them. He gets close to Putin. He moves as Putin's chef in Kremlin, and then suddenly becomes the boss of Wagner and all that. Now, also just see that he's not the only player. I'm told the mayor of Moscow has some companies like this. I'm told there's a person called Igor Seshin. He runs similar companies that is in the world of oil and petroleum and natural gas. There is a guy called Sorjoy Chemozov. He does this stuff in the military-industrial complex. So these, what you call oligarchs, friends of Putin, they have been doing this kind of business in various domains. Now, what is particular about Wagner was that it was put specifically to operate in the grey zone of geopolitics, which means you don't have a formal position. Now, if you don't have a formal position, two things happen. That the state can deny. There is no attributability. So green men in Ukraine or all those places, you can deny. And second, does it lower the costs? Now, this is, a very typical mentality of somebody who operated in lawless Russia, that crime, mafia kind. So he said, or perhaps he suggested to Putin that look at the cost of body bags that the West has. When soldiers mandated to die, they die. The state, people are dying, the state, gets flack. But if people are contracted, people somehow think they went to fight. They were paid to fight. They were mercenaries. They died. It lowers the costs in those national terms. Now,
so is that why West also adopted the model and all the Eric princes of the world were created in black waters?
But Blackwater has not gone to this extent. Blackwater,
Yes.
they also have a... But see, this is much more...
That job was given to the supporters of Donald Trump.
Yes. But what he did is very different. Then this is a little interesting. So he is driven by this whole entrepreneurial logic. But see how he serves Russian interests. I'm told he mobilized 50,000 criminals from jails, from these penal complexes. And what is the bizarre assurance that he gives them? Workable assurance. He says, you come out, if you fight and survive for 6 months, all your crimes are excused. People came, people fought. He managed to give them superior salaries, better equipment, so he turned around the battle in Bakhmut. He actually became useful to the state in statecraft. He developed this whole troll farms for Putin in all their IW initiatives. He developed this whole network of influencers, bloggers who influenced the 2016 presidential elections. He creates a media company. Then with Putin's backing, Russia's backing, he goes to Africa. And for providing security to African leaders, insecure African leaders, he gets mining rights. So look at how this whole world is operating now, that you're delivering a service, you're reaping benefits. And he, because of all this, and because he had an informal position, he was not held to such account, he started delivering better than the normal military bureaucracy. Now that creates tension because Shoigu and Gerasimov were questioned. You are not delivering in the same manner. He is, and he will deliver better pay, better equipment, less bureaucracy, freedom to function. And he was so close to Putin that he became this larger-than-life figure. But the interesting part is that these investments in grey zone have helped Russia. China does something very similar. It has mastered it. So with China, and see, this is a larger question which we have to see. The West and us, we are all schooled in those Clausewitz doctrines. War and peace, right and wrong. So Clausewitz says, tricks, deception, these are weapons of the weak. Sun Tzu says they are weapons of choice. Our Chanakya says something similar. So the point that I make, I'm not saying that you copy it, but when you look at the statecraft of the Russians and the Chinese, our statecraft also must be infused with what is, called strategic cunning. We cannot be so innocent in statecraft. So that is the central Russian from this Wagner episode. It turned out to be a mutiny and people say that Putin will not spare him now. He will get at him since he chose to rebel. For some time, it was a little perplexing that why did GRU not react? Why did the Russian military? So there were some fissures. Perhaps as usual in such countries, people were waiting and watching.
It is also often said that Prigozhin, this Wagner group has a lot of former army, retired army officers. they hire a lot of people who were disabled and were not fit for service in the Russian army. So they have contracted them also. And then there are people who have worked with Wagner Group in different war zones. So they have a relationship with them. And so it is always, you have been in army, it is always very tough for a Fauji to fire on their own citizens. Like Indian army, they have never fired on their own citizens. Or if they were made to fire, they have always resisted it. At least this is what I know. And but sir, don't you think that when former intelligence officers like Putin, who served in the West Germany in KGB, and he was basically influencing the politicians there and compromising them, when they are given to rule, they tend to create such oligarchs, and they try to rule through these shady ways of creating oligarchs and influence groups and trying to manipulate politics. Don't you think that the natural political leadership never chooses this way of ruling, but intelligence officials do?
So see, I was coming to that. While sometimes these shady deals pay, but they also backfire. So perhaps the question that you raised is that the monopoly of violence must remain with the state. You must not outsource it to other agencies. Sometimes you succeed.
So isn't it what intelligence officials do all their life? Outsourcing violence to non-state players?
They are meant to do it.
Yes.
That is their job. So everybody does it. All intelligence agencies do this. But I don't think anybody has replicated these PMCs, these Wagner kind of companies, and the manner that the Russians have. See, look at them. They are serving global.
No other intel guy got to become the president.
But look at the places where they are resourcing Russian interests, global hotspots: Syria, Libya, Central African Republic, Mali, Ukraine Phase 1, Crimea, Chechnya, and they delivered.
Yes.
They delivered. And since they were delivering, Putin got bolder and bolder. But this is what it led to. And now, why have they now said that all these private military companies all will get into a formal MOU, which means that they are taking back this violence, a monopoly of violence which they have outsourced. They are reversing this decision. Perhaps they are realizing their follies. But the basic point that you said, the intelligence, the mind functions like that. Intelligence, mind functions like that.
Sir, it is also said that Uncle Sam had a role to play in this entire episode. And it was said that if Uncle Sam's nodal person for such initiatives had not attempted this coup, and he would have been fired by Joe Biden as a chief. So, do you think that there can be some substance behind it? Because all of a sudden, because Wagner has been working along with Putin for far so long, like you have all just told us, and Putin is the man who has brought him from selling burgers to running Wagner. So obviously, he couldn't be that treacherous unless it was paid for.
So see, Western intelligence and CIA, after the disaster of what happened in Iraq, seems to be doing well. After all, we predicted the Ukrainian offensive. And it is also, sometime I remember, just before, in mid-June, people had started talking about it. And I'm told the UK Prime Minister was briefed, the CIA briefed White House, Pentagon, that something was happening, that Prigozhin was unhappy. Now, whether they did it from intelligence or media reports, because Prigozhin was shouting from the top of his voice. He was abusing Shoigu in public. So the fact that he was unhappy, there was, something unsettling happening in the oligarchs and all that. They did get a win. But let me tell you one thing more. I was surprised to read this. There is a writer, Tatiana Stanovaya, who writes for the Eastern Circle. She wrote this weeks before June 24. She says Prigozhin's role is informal in the Russian system. It is therefore fragile and could end without notice. So, an analyst bhi yahi keh rahe the. So, perhaps those who were more intimately connected with this, we are far removed, who we were seeing these things on a day-to-day basis, They saw Prigozhin's end. Now, whether the Americans have engineered it, I have no evidence. I don't think, but they had an inkling. But why intelligence? I'm telling you what analysts said. Many of these analysts had predicted that this would happen.
So we see that Russia is trying to win over Ukraine for far too long now. Like when we did our first interview, in that also we discussed this. And months later, many months later, we are again, we are there only. Neither the war is ending, neither the war is yielding any results, neither for America nor for Russia. And there are innocent Ukrainians dying. So, what is this war all about? And as a military mind, what do you think has went so wrong for Russia? And obviously nothing is going wrong for Uncle Sam. Obviously, because their people are not dying. They are just spending some money. They are giving some arms and ammunitions, which obviously an economy like America can always afford. So, but it is not yielding any results for both the sides. So, and innocents are dying. So, as a military mind, what do you think? What has went wrong?
So, see, before I come to the combat military aspects of it, just two larger points I want to make. How will this war end? If this war will end, Zelensky has said that unless he takes back what the Russians hold, which means what they have captured since 2014, which is, I'm told, some 23% of Ukrainian territory. So Crimea and all that they have done in this phase of invasion that is post-February 2022. Unless we take it back, there's no talking. Now, if that is the Ukrainian standpoint, and what is the Russian standpoint? Neutrality. Ukraine must become neutral. With all this, will now Ukraine become neutral? They are going to NATO and saying that you admitted Sweden and Finland, why not us? So I don't see a political solution happening. The stalemate is going to continue. It's going to be a long war, in my view. Now let's come to the combat aspects. See, it has gone through 2-3 phases. The first phase was, when I was really amazed that this Russian military, which was the second most powerful. So let me tell you, in 2017, I went to a land warfare conference in London, which was organized by RUSI. And now when I look back, it had people from NATO, from the West, all of them were saying that Russia is in a belligerent phase. It is in a belligerent mode. Russia is reviving itself. NATO should start doing something. And this was soldiers, diplomats, thinkers. I, as an Indian, was thinking, what will Russia do? There was consensus. Now, this is exactly what happened. Russia did, and the West's reaction always trails. Democracy's reaction trails. So Russia did what it did. When it did what it did, now you see the surprise. Russians proved to be, before that it was called, this learning and adaptive force, a great leverager of the Gerasimov doctrine. As long it was winning without fighting, it was doing very well, grey zone. The moment it came to hardcore combat, it unraveled mysteriously. Readiness was actually suspect. In the Indian context also, we have to examine. See, building a complex, talking doctrine is one matter. Readiness is an entirely different matter. Readiness can unravel. We have to be very cautious about this. The Russians, as I told you today, the Ukrainians are running out of ammunition. This military, industrial, all this business, so readiness is entirely, they unraveled. Now see what happens. Ukraine, because of, Zelensky's leadership, the valor of Ukrainians, all that technology, what Peter Thiel gave, and suddenly the Ukrainians, they revived. By September, October last year, they seem to be regaining offensive. They took back Kharkiv, they took back Kherson. And again, now Western hesitancy is creeping. We will give only so many tanks. Poland was to give 14 tanks. They took 7 months to give 7. Something on Leopards, Challengers. Debate, should we give F-16? Should we? Once again, because of Western hesitancies, the Russians have regrouped. And now let me tell you what it is, the situation today as I read it. The Russians have developed a very formidable defensive belt, which has not only a very strong defensive belt, but mined with an obstacle system. They have carried out such suppression of AD, Ukrainian AD, that I think the Ukrainian AD today is pretty weak, if not existent. which means what? It gives freedom to their attack vectors to operate. And the Ukrainians have been launching this counter-offensive. In modern military history, it must be a complete aberration without air power. They are severely handicapped. No wonder I am told from 4th June onward, when the counter-offensive started, the Russians have lost some 1,000 men. The Ukrainians have lost 13,000 men, 10 times. Now, this is what happens, Western hesitancy. Should we give them this? Should we give them that? They've given them HIMARS, no ATACMS. They haven't given them that other thing, that British missile, which is cruise longer. If you give that to them, they can take Crimea. But if you are asking them to retake the territory that the Russians are holding, which in this period when you were hesitating, the Russians have built a very formidable belt. So as things stand today, I think the Russians have an edge. And now the Russians lack technological innovation, but their basic military-industrial complex has revived. So ammunition, there is no dearth. Artillery, there is no dearth. They are firing 10 times more artillery rounds than the Ukrainians. I've told you the advantage in attack vectors. And two things more have happened. One is, persistent surveillance and precision, which is so important in our case. That is why MQ-9B, that is why satellite space. In modern conflict, persistent surveillance is game-changing, along with precision. Each time these Ukrainian forces advance, they are being observed and they are being hit with precision strikes. So such high casualties, they are not able to close into the main defensive belt. So they are operating, despite their great valor, against all combat and technological odds. This is what the West has to see and all, that when push comes to shove, why do they always fall short? And if they fall short, the adversary systems will. All these hesitancies, we will not give this, we will not give that. In war, everything matters. He has long-range missiles, he has drones, he has persistent surveillance, he has precision strike capability. And just see, when we're talking of technology, precision strike capability takes decades to achieve. 3 decades. When people are quibbling now, if we start acting now, it'll take 20 years. Persistent surveillance is another. So all these things, but in my reading today, is as things stand today, Russia has an advantage. I don't think the Ukrainians will be able to breach this offensive belt. And so that is where the conflict stands.
So, as you said, in this entire Russia-Ukraine conflict, what are the lessons for us? Because we have seen that a mighty army like Russia can be crippled down for months by a tiny country like Ukraine when compared to Russia. So what are the lessons, and does Indian Army take lessons from such conflicts? Are there case studies, are there papers which are written, and are there discussions because we can also face similar challenges in the future, because we never know, like you said, that the preparedness or the readiness, it has to be maintained. It is very it's a tough job, and war or any conflict does not give notice to you that okay, so and so date there is going to be a conflict between India and China, or India or Pakistan, or India or Bangladesh. So it just happens. Things happen, and they just go haywire, and then you have to react. And sometimes you react proportionately. Sometimes you have to respond disproportionately, like we did in Balakot. Like we decided to go across the border and hit where the bull was. So what do you think, sir? Have we taken lessons, and what are the lessons that we have learned?
So let me just quickly go through the lessons from the strategic, operational, tactical, grassroots. Let's go through them quickly. So see, the strategic lesson is this, which is that, you just see how the instrument of force has suddenly become central to the strategic calculus. See what Russia is doing. Some people say it's the first hot war of Cold War 2.0. What could happen in Taiwan? Second hot war in Cold War 2.0. So the instrument of force is becoming central to the strategic calculus. We should take note of that first. Take note. Don't get carried away by cliches. इंडिया में भी बात होने लगी थी कि लड़ाई नहीं होने वाली, लड़ाई का स्वरूप बदल. The character of war is changing. But war is a constant. Very good lessons. Whenever there is a, talk of building capability, building deterrence, people say cost. While deterrence is costly, war is costly. So these are the larger questions which the nation has to absorb. Whatever we need for deterrence. So let me make it Indo-US convergence. If it creates deterrence, you are safe. There can be no peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific unless there is deterrence in the Indo-Pacific. So all these capabilities that you make, so instrument of force, where is it in the strategic calculus? Deterrence vis-a-vis war. Ask the Ukrainians today. The poor Ukrainians, is war costly or was deterrence costly? All those people who hedged on spending. Look at NATO. EU is the richest grouping in the world, $930 billion. And you hesitate to spend on defense? Is it wise? Merkel thought that oil dependencies will secure her. Was it wise? These are the lessons to learn. In our context, a lot of things seem to be going right in our journey through Amrit Kal. We must strengthen the instrument of force or the strategic military enterprise, which is beyond the military act. This realization has to be there. The only thing that could disfigure Amrit Kal is a major national security reversal. So realize this. Please spend on deterrence. Or now, I don't mean just fiscal spending. Invest in deterrence. That is what all wise nations do. That is a central lesson. Second, this readiness bit. Now see, what does the Indian military need to do? We need to become joint, and just carefully please listen to me, joint, calibrated, technologically enabled and ready. They are just 4 words. Jointness has already taken us 3 decades. We are still struggling.
Yes.
So these are very serious matters. They have to be understood in their depth.
So did CDS create the kind of jointness that was desired? Because I don't hear a lot of compliments on that side that it has actually achieved what it intended. Because I guess before CDS also there was an attempt for this jointness and integrated defense staff, as something like that was there.
So you had what is called headquarter IDS.
So
see, that was again a stopgap measure. But actually what happened, when this government appointed a CDS DMA, it was actually game-changing. And his mandate is to drive change through the national security system. It is a huge mandate. A lot of things began to happen. Unfortunately, it got interrupted by the demise of General Rao. And now because of that break, some things have lagged. But here, what do we need to do? So there are 2 things. One is, bottoms up, what we are doing, cross-posting, training, doctrine, the larger issues there. What I say, we need to become ambitious in our national security. Theatre commands with a quasi-diplomatic role, digital transition to digital combat. It is just not jointness. It is this whole transformation which the CDS is supposed to drive. Now, he's been here now for a while. Something is in the offing. I'm sanguine that something will happen. Those large things will also happen. But yes, they need to happen. Jointness is what? Just not integrating the services. Jointness was a debate of the 1990s. Today it has moved from jointness to total integration, cross-pollination, civil-military fusion. So let's just give an example of the distance we have to travel. The CDS today is like the permanent chairman Joint Chiefs which the US had in 1949. They graduated to what is called coordinated jointness. In the first Gulf War, network-centric warfare. Second Gulf War, it became integration, where a Bradley commander could call for the fire of an FX team. And then, of course, cross-pollination, civil-military fusion. Today, what are they doing? Just so interesting, in April, the chairman of Google Cloud, or the vice chairman of Google Cloud, has been appointed as technology advisor to CENTCOM. Can you imagine this? In Pentagon, they have got a person who did machine learning for Lyft, the cab company. This is the kind of technology which is coming. Civil-military fusion. So jointmanship is just one part of the debate. That is why I'm saying that in the next 25 years, the edifice has been laid. CDS, DMA, a whole lot of good things have happened. We now need to make this whole national security makeover, much larger transformation. And given our strategic circumstance, China is your neighbor, which is a very powerful customer. So we need everything. We need technological partnerships. People say, will the US fight for you? Why should they? They won't fight for us. We don't need their blood or treasure. We need technology. We will fight on our own, but we need technology. We need technology. We need reform. Structural reform. Cultural reform. Cultural reform is what? You need national security. Today is so complicated. You need new talent pipelines, which other countries are doing. So we need to be far more ambitious, entrepreneurial in our thought in national security. Everybody needs to come together. There are challenges. While some good things have been done, but just creation of the CDS will not help. All these things have to be done. And this has to be done by military, bureaucratic, technological, administrative leadership. Politician has set the tone. I think it is this leadership which has to deliver. That is the challenge in national security.
So India is buying Russian oil, and India is buying so much Russian oil that Russia is today the biggest exporter of oil to India. And India is importing more oil from Russia than Saudi Arabia and Iraq put together, two of the largest oil suppliers to India. So, I mean, there are various comments on it. The West specifically has not liked this, and they have been criticizing Indian government. And one Ukrainian gentleman, a minister there, had also commented that every barrel of oil that India is receiving from Russia has Ukrainian blood in it. So, I mean, it sounds very poetic. And so, what do you think? That are we is it good for us? Should we do it morally? And does morality work in diplomacy and geopolitics? Or when we talk about running nations, does morality work? And secondly, how do we manage it? We are buying billions of dollars worth of Russian oil, and then we are also going in the partnership with America. How both work together?
So, see, I think, factually, you're right. I'm told before the Ukraine conflict, we used to import 2% of oil from Russia. Now it's close to some 37, 30. So it's a huge jump. See, just let me tell you, discuss it. I'm no expert on oil, so I'll just discuss it. What was the purpose of this discounting oil? Who set the tone for it? The Americans. What was the logic? The world needs oil. Russia needs to be sanctioned. So they will allow oil to be bought by the rest of the world, which is at discounted price, so that Putin does not get profits to fund the war machine. That was the logic of discounted oil. Now, in this discounted oil, people were given the option and they bought. So not only India, Pakistan, Turkey, Bulgaria, whole China, a whole lot of countries have bought. China has the other advantage of not getting seaborne oil, piped gas and all that. We don't have that natural advantage. So in that sense, it is a decision driven by geoeconomics. It has brought inflation rates down. Our economy was also challenged after COVID. So we have taken it in our national interest. But principally, what is wrong? How did the Americans make the offer? They made the offer of discounted oil. What was this whole mechanism about? The larger logic was that now to say how much should we buy from Saudi Arabia, how much we should, everybody makes those, they're all sovereign decisions. After all, Saudi Arabia was told by Iran to cut its production because of the war. They didn't listen to the Americans. So, it is not that because the Ukrainians are suffering, Saudi Arabia did it. Everybody takes his decisions in his own sovereign interest. The Americans have taken huge steps to shift their energy dependence of oil to shale. Everybody does it. So, it is a peculiar combination of what the new international circumstance dictated and what countries chose to do in their self-interest. So, foreign policy has a moral tone which is driven largely by self-interest. This is multi-alignment, cheap oil from wherever you get it. That is the logic of the markets. But of late, I'm told that there are some problems in refining and also that percentage is going down. But I would say it was taken in our self-interest. And ultimately, also, I think, who was that very famous person who said that there are no permanent friends, no only self-interest? Who was it? I forget.
Henry Kissinger.
Somebody like that. So that is going to happen in international affairs. And it is going to be a careful calibration of values and interests, social value, but largely self-interest. America takes all decisions in self-interest. So, what is the essential American quarrel? I have not understood. You only made this mechanism available of discounted oil. Most countries are doing it. Could they have said that there will be no oil to the West? The world would have come to a standstill. They have allowed it.
Sir, in the end, I would like to end this podcast. Wonderful session with you, sir.
Thank you.
So I also remember something that Henry Kissinger said, that to be friends to be enemy of America is dangerous, but to be friends with America is fatal. So
Time will tell. Let's see.
let us see. And former Secretary of State for United States. And thank you all for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe and press the bell icon so that in the future when we release any other video, and I hope we'll do many more sessions with sir.
Certainly.
If you agree.
Look forward. Yes, certainly.
And so you'll get notifications, and please do like the video if you loved this session. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Vaibhav. Thank you so much.
Thanks.